Good morning, this is Kim Hammer with your devotion taken from 1 Samuel chapter 17. We continue to look at the story of David and Goliath. Each day Goliath would come out and he would take his position on his side of the valley, and he would taunt and he would yell at the nation of Israel and tell them to send out their best warrior that he might defeat them. And every day the nation of Israel, they would come out and they would line up on their side of the valley and they would send no one, because the Bible tells us that not only were the soldiers scared, but Saul, their leader, was also scared. Now there's a defined time during which this took place in verse 16, and this was for 40 days this happened, that Goliath would come out and he would taunt the nation of Israel. Something else that you would read in the scriptures, if you take time to read 1 Samuel 17, is that every day David would leave his sheep with a shepherd, and he would come and he would observe what was happening, and then he'd go back. So for 40 days, Goliath was coming out and taunting the nation of Israel, and also David was coming to the battle lines. Reminds me of when Jesus went off in the wilderness to begin his ministry. It was for 40 days that he was tormented and he was taunted by Satan. That's what Satan is in the business of doing. He's in the business of tormenting. He's in the business of taunting. Whenever it is that we think about how that God's people were listening to the enemy every day, they were listening to the enemy instead of listening to God. David was willing to listen to God, and that's what made him stand out among everybody else that was listening to the enemy. And if you are an individual that will quit listening to what the enemy says and quit worrying about being taunted by the enemy and start listening to God, then you can choose the results that you want to have. You can direct the outcome that you want to get. You can listen to God and be like David, or you can be like Saul and like the rest of the army and listen to the enemy. The choice is yours. It wasn't that he was speaking the truth, Goliath that is. It wasn't that Goliath was speaking the truth. He was just getting all the attention, and he was speaking louder. Sometimes we need to do like the Bible says and listen to that still small voice. And then when we begin to listen to God, doesn't matter how the enemy taunts us, we will have the victory in the end.